there and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth today. As usual, I'm Anah Parreli. If you're new to the channel, thank you for joining us. And because this is part of a series, you might want to actually explore all of the series. So in many ways, this particular series has been delivered as a workshop. So when we're looking at the numbers on the birth chart, this is kind of one of the final phases that we would do when we're doing a numerology report. For those people that have been part of the journey all the way through, thanks very much. I'm glad that you're still here and that you're finding the content interesting. Going back to the content of the series today, what we're doing, this is obviously the first video in the whole series of arrows on the birth chart. And some people call this method of numerology tic-tac-toe. Now, I have seen that some people will also do numerology reports just using the birth chart, and this is not what I consider to be an accurate form of doing a numerology report. When I do my own numerology reports, I bring in all the aspects of everything that I've delivered in the series here, and the birth charts basically are just part of, I guess, creating a level of accuracy and something that is relatable to people. So just a reminder for people listening, for the repeat visitors, and as a bit of information for new visitors, the accuracy of a report is through the combination of all the information. We don't read any particular aspect of the information I give you as standalone. And when we finish off the arrows, we're going to be taking a look at what I call the peak pyramids, which that is more of a predictive element for people across their life path. And I'm not sure how accurate that is, but that will be a discussion that we have. Basically, the reason why we don't read the birth chart as standalone is because there are so many other influences on a person that are aside from the birth chart. We have to take into account things like the ruling number, the name numerology, and the implication of all of those to get this rounded vision of what the birth chart actually means. And when we're looking at the birth chart, we're looking at influences on the person. It can definitely be a revelation, but let's go on to the next slide and talk about what sort of arrows there are. So I've listed the potential arrows that might arise on a birth chart here so that you can get an idea of where the content of this series is going to go. You can see that there's quite a number of them, and yeah, they just give insight. Yeah, we will be talking about all of these individually and what the potential influences are of having these specific arrows on the chart. So that being said, when we do look at the arrows on the birth chart, as discussed, the numbers individually on the chart carry specific meanings and energy, and they're indications of the life journey and challenges within themselves as to what a person may or may not have to overcome. We've all got free will. So some people may have no arrows at all, and all this means is that while they might experience certain characteristics or there's certain indications, they won't necessarily have the in-depth experiences of those or challenges as those people that have got an arrow. So, this is as far as the learning goes on an emotional perspective. Usually, I say emotional because at the end of the day, although the power of mind is very much part of this process as well, and people's thinking and attitudes, at the end of the day, feelings and emotions are vital to this journey of life. And I also think it's worth recognising or acknowledging that as most people walk their path, they will either feel confident or they will feel insecure. It just depends who and what they are and what they may have to learn to develop as part of making their life path a little easier. So, for example, a person with a arrow, what we call an arrow of hypersensitivity, and this is just an example, is really challenged to learn to harness their emotions and not to react to what they perceive to be slights or offences. And the word hypersensitivity speaks for itself. This indicates that there is this capacity within them where they may take offence where no harm was intended. And we see this a lot, but just to be clear here as well, just because somebody has that kind of behavior or insecurity doesn't mean that they've got the arrow of hypersensitivity, okay? Because we're all different, we've all got free will. And just because it's like saying, just because it's in the cards doesn't mean it's going to come to fruition, because of the other influences that we have around our personality. But either way, if a person has got an arrow of hypersensitivity or not, or if they just are hypersensitive is what I mean, there becomes this tendency to make decisions based on a clouded vision of emotions, and to become more reactive. And that tends to lead to a path of misery for them, and potentially for other people around them. So I don't know if you've personally known people with the arrow of hypersensitivity, or these people that are just so insecure and reactive, that they tend to lash out and they can be quite vindictive. I'm not speaking just about people with the arrow, I'm talking about this heightened sense of insecurity that can lead to a lot of discomfort for a lot of people around them until they're able to process their emotions and establish whether or not they have been genuinely offended, if there was a malicious slight against them, or whether or not they're just perceiving a slight that doesn't exist. And they have to be able to rationalize and process, because these aren't feelings. Although it's on an emotional response, this is the flawed thinking that talks them into believing something has happened when it hasn't, right? So we will be talking about the arrow of hypersensitivity when we get there. But for now, it's just, yes, look, the arrows will give us insights into a person and their potential challenges. And the thing is, we're not psychiatrists or psychologists when we're doing numerology, and we wouldn't be able to conclusively turn around and say, look, a person's going to be X, Y, and Z simply because it's in their charts. The reality is that some people may have dealt with this stuff in the very early years, or if they've got parents that are informed in numerology and they understand the implications of some of these arrows, and the children have had a stable environment, then they may have actually had the foundations for addressing the challenges in their very early formative years, which would be the perfect and ideal option. And this is why when we do up numerology reports, we do give strategy for parents with children with specific arrows. So I think the best place to begin when we start talking about arrows on the birth chart is actually to refer to the birth chart that doesn't have any arrows at all on it, because this is really quite common as far as birth charts go. And generally speaking, people with no arrows on their birth chart, they're quite adaptable. They find it easy to shift between social and work environments. And from a personal learning perspective, however, as I stumble over my words, they will need to pay. So if this is you and you've got no arrows on your birth chart, then the idea is that you pay more attention to strengthening the gifts that you have than other people might need to. So for that, what that means is basically, if you have a passion for music but you definitely don't have the skills for it, but you could learn it or whatever, and it's there as something to develop, then you would be advised to actually throw yourself into it and to work towards achieving the goal. You will achieve your goal, of course, because practice makes perfect, but you might have to work a bit harder than other people that have, say, got a different type of arrow. I'm trying to think which one it is, but we'll come to it later. But I hope you get what I mean. Anyway, the primary lesson for people with no arrows on their birth chart is basically to learn to be assertive, because basically there's so much adaptability and flexibility with these people that quite often they may compromise their personal boundaries or just not strive to achieve a goal because it's easier to just go with the flow or whatever. So for parents, if you've got a child that doesn't have any arrows on their birth chart, then you're reminded that don't take these little people for granted, okay? Because it's very easy to do so because they are so easygoing. But realistically, they need to learn the skills to be able to assert themselves and to achieve their goals, particularly if there's something that's very, very important to them. And it's about getting what they need or desire in wise ways, in creative ways, as opposed to reactive reactive responses, I guess, and instead of demanding what they want, which would be highly unusual, just so that, if somebody has got this adaptability and all the rest of it, they're unlikely to be a demanding type of individual. But if they want something badly enough, they may become demanding. So the idea would be to teach them how to navigate their goal setting, drawing upon, say, skills of communication, negotiation, and even planning might be part of it as well, but to creatively achieve what it is they're hoping to achieve. So when it comes to doing the arrows, I'm discussing them in no specific order. There is no, arrow such and such is arrow number 1. There's just 16 arrows or 15 of them. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about is the Arrow of the Intellect, and this is on the mind plane, as you can see here. It's where the birth chart has got at least one of the number 3, the number 6, and the number 9 together, and that forms this arrow. So while these people generally will have a bright and happy personality, they clearly tend to have a preference for anything that's intellectual and thought-based. This is the mind plane, as opposed to potentially physical or active aspects of life. Now, of course, this is going to be dependent on the other influence of their birth date or birthday. As I said, it will depend on what their ruling number is, their day number. Their sun and moon signs, of course, are going to have influence, as will the family environment and culture, the land in which they live. But overall, regardless of all of this, there's going to be this focus for them on mental stimulation, shall we say. They'll be quite analytical. A pitfall for people with this arrow is that they do tend to try and rationalise everything, including their feelings, and they may actually even ignore their feelings, and they might not even be really aware of just exactly how emotional they are, because they have this inherent discomfort for emotional reactiveness, because they would rather rely on their thought. This is where we come into the power of mind and the power of feelings. So there is a real potential for them to suppress emotions, I guess. Now, the other pitfall for people with this arrow is that they can become intellectually snobbish or act superior to people who are either not as clever as what they are or as intellectual, or those people that tend to make their decisions based on impulse or feelings, and those people that will act before they think. So that's the impulsive aspect. Yeah, they don't tend to really understand why people won't think before they act, and they have a bit of an issue with it. So if we're talking about you and you're the person that's been born with an arrow of the intellect, then you would be encouraged basically to develop your skills of compassion and tolerance, and to realise that even if people are impulsive or even unwise in their decision making, that you might consider this to be somehow a character flaw or a personal deficiency, and I use these words in quotation marks, but the reality is, even if they are, everybody has the capacity to grow and develop themselves, and therefore nobody is stuck or restricted in being what and who they are right now today. They can work on these personality traits, strengthen them, and become more logical and rational, and they can also change behaviours. And you might also be able to play a role in helping them to do the behaviour changes, because quite often impulsive behaviour lends itself to, act in haste, repent at leisure. Now, a person with this rationalising aspect of their personality can actually support people to develop those traits. So this might be part of your own divine path. Yes, what else can I say about this? Quite simply, that if you did choose this pathway, if this was something that you identified as part of your own life path, that you want to be able to help people to lead more positive lives through controlling impulsive behaviours, or even anything, that actually this would be very beneficial for you emotionally, because the indicators of this arrow is, or one of the traits of it is, that these people, such as yourself, feel the best about themselves when they're actually working with other people and helping them to achieve their goals. Now, for those parents of children that have got this arrow on their chart, the guidance here would be to really start at a young age to teach them to have this compassion for other people and to accept and respect and value the differences between people, because we all have unique talents and gifts. And as a society, we prosper and we all do well when we're all able to contribute in the ways where our gifts are valued. So, just because a person is impulsive or reactive doesn't mean that they don't have gifts, and that doesn't mean that we're not able to tap into their skills and strengths as well as a society and benefit from them. So, as a parent, we're kind of obligated to teach this accept and respect, and find the gifts that these people bring to society and help them to bring them to the conscious surface, I guess. Now, an interesting factor with the Arrow of Intellect, because I try and find relatable people, or that we all might know when I'm talking about numbers and arrows and that kind of stuff to do with birthdays. I just thought I would point out that J.K. Rowling actually has the Arrow of Intellect. Just as a person to say, well, obviously she is in her mind, she's an author, she has really thought out, clearly she must have a very exceptional memory and a very active brain to write the book series that she's done and to have achieved the success that she has, certainly within her field of work. She's now worth a fortune. But the interesting thing with J.K. Rowling is she doesn't just have the Arrow of Intellect, she has the Arrow of Determination. So for this reason, we're going to look at the Arrow of Determination now. So when we talk about the Arrow of Determination, and this is such an interesting number because straight off the bat I was able to find 3 people with this arrow, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the Arrow of Determination is, of course, this arrow that goes across the birth chart on the diagonal. It's got the 1, 5 and 9 there. And with this arrow, there's a heightened potential for achievement. What a surprise when we think of J.K. Rowling, through sheer determination and focus on goals and objectives. Now, the thing is, though, that often this may appear to other people as stubbornness and a refusal to give in or give up. Now, I think if we know anything about J.K. Rowling, we know that's true, because apparently when she wrote her first book, she was in abject poverty, she was a single mother, and she was living in a garage, if I recall correctly, and she wrote the book in a week. So that is pure, dogged determination and a refusal to give up on the goal. So anyway, the middle path of determination is one where we draw upon the combined use of intuition, wisdom and compassion, and this will generally produce the most favourable results. So of course this stands to reason as well. Rowling actually is quite compassionate and she does have wisdom about her. So I'm just going to speak to what the wisdom of this particular arrow is before I talk more about what we can see and observe in the people that carry this number, right? A key learning is for the people with this arrow is to understand that not everything that they determine as being suitable for them is actually suitable or under divine will or part of their divine plan. And sometimes the difficulty for them is that they will see what is they consider a stumbling block, and they'll just keep chipping away and persevering to achieve this goal that they've decided that they need to have or they want to have, when they actually should be diverting and redirecting themselves and finding a new path and a new goal, as opposed to just hanging in there and trying to force things to occur the way they would like them to evolve. Because all that happens is, if they are just hanging in there and persevering when it's not part of the plan, is that they end up with a lot of grief and pain and frustration. So for people with this arrow, they've got to be able to link it not only with this determination, but also with intuitive decisiveness, to learn to allow their feelings, to be aware of their feelings and their emotions, and to be able to establish what feels right as opposed to what they think is right. And when they can do this, okay, then they will have that power to achieve some pretty intense goals, shall we say. And because the Arrow of Determination has got the 9, that is associated with ambition. So often you will actually see this Arrow of Determination with people that have achieved or made high achievements within their work and societal levels. So now I'm going to talk about, because it's quite funny actually, I feel that when we look at the Arrow of Determination and talk about J.K. Rowling, that she is marrying all the positive ingredients of this arrow together to have achieved the success that she has. So I would say, whether you like Rowling and her beliefs or not, the point is that she actually has been able to use the arrow of determination, the arrow of intellect, with wisdom, with intuition, with compassion, and to be able to achieve her goals to become the success she has. Now, we also can see the arrow of determination in people that don't have compassion, okay, but they still achieve high success or status. And the first one that I found was actually Putin, President of Russia. He was born on the 7th of October in 1952. Now, obviously, certainly within the Western context, we perceive Putin as a tyrant. Whether you perceive him as a tyrant or not, it's very clear and evident that he definitely believes that his way is the right way, and he definitely certainly strikes down the opposition, shall we say. That would be the best way that I can think to say this without being offensive. But I don't think anybody would dispute that actually he is a very determined man, and he has achieved the success that he has because he has stuck at it and really persevered. Now, the next person, goodness me, is somebody who's got the arrow of determination, but not necessarily using it with any form of wisdom whatsoever. And this is actually Prince Harry. So the reason why I say, and I'm not opening the door to people buying into the Harry versus William stuff, the reason why I say unwise is because obviously Harry has been very loud about the fact that he's made it his life goal to take out legal actions against all these media that he has a vested interest, shall we say. He's got his agenda there for what he believes to be important, and he will stick at this. He's very determined to stick at this and to take out this litigation. And what's happening is that there's a kickback. There are those people that think that, well, they have negative opinions of him. Let's not get into the politics of it. Let's just say that this perseverance is alienating him from all of his supports, and that's a little tragic. So that becomes a case of, I've heard plenty of people now referring to him as being a vexatious litigant, which means that he just sues people for the sake of suing people. So here we see an application of the arrow of determination in a way where he would be wiser to just say, right, okay, I've made my point. He's exposed the problem. He's been very vocal about it. He's drawn it to the attention of the public. And now perhaps it's time to let go and move on, because it's just compounding his pain for him at this point in time, I would think, through this isolation. Now, I want to go back to Rowling for a moment, because I just want to say, I was quite blown away when I look at the charts. Sometimes this happens for me when I'm doing charts of people. I'm like, wow, it's kind of awesome, literally. And you get this real insight into this character. Now, we see her more and more on the news at the moment because she's obviously got these political viewpoints, which I won't get into. But what I will get into is that based on her numerology, she is a fire sign. So she is going to be passionate about whatever causes she throws herself into. And because she's got the arrow of determination combined with the arrow of intellect, my assumptions from looking at the charts is that she's got powers of endurance combined with powers of intelligence, and she will definitely be prepared to play the long game. She'll also basically outwit her opposition at every chance. And based on what I see in her charts, she's really not the sort of person to worry about what other people say about her. And the good news for her is she's so well equipped financially that even if there was a total council of her, she's got the capacity to withstand it, because she's actually developed the strength of everything that comes through in her numbers. But she's done it in such a way as she still has retained compassion, I believe. So, in order to keep today's video brief, I'm actually going to finish here for today and say, come back and see me, please come back and see me next Monday for the next video. I'm not sure what arrows I'll be speaking to next week, but you'll soon find out. It'll be loaded same time every Monday, is what happens with the numerology if you're not familiar with it. And for now, I'd just like to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Hope that this has been interesting. With next week's video, I will put the chapter timings in just to help you out, because I will obviously, with each video that I create, I have to take into account that there may be some people that are visiting for the first time and they're not aware of these introductory type pages that I've got, or the slides. So I will always review some of the content. So I'll put the timing in. So if you've watched this one, just skip along to the part that interests you, okay? I'm sure you would have thought to do that yourself anyway, but just thought I'd throw it in there. For now, though, I'm going to say love you, leave you, catch you on the next video. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye for now.